The massive holographic display filled the council chamber on Hegemon Prime, showing a small blue planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. 12 different species sat around the curved table, their eyes fixed on what they considered their next easy conquest. High Chancellor Vexithara stood tall on her 6 legs, her crystalline skin catching the light from the display. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had never known defeat. Council members, I present to you world number 848. The inhabitants call it Earth. A ripple of interest passed through the chamber. War Master Kelndar of the Zephyrian Empire leaned forward, his biomechanical implants glowing softly. What do we know about their defenses? Primitive beyond belief, Vexthara replied, manipulating the display to show Earth's technology. They have basic fusion reactors, chemical rockets, and weapons that fire metal projectiles. Their most advanced warship carries missiles that would barely scratch the hull of our smallest scout vessel. Commander Thexmore of the Machina Collective processed the data through his cybernetic brain in milliseconds. Population: 8 billion humans confined to a single world. They have small settlements on their moon and a few research stations on nearby planets, but nothing that qualifies as true space colonization. The council members exchanged glances that showed their amusement. Admiral Zefkar of the Void Hunters let out a sound that resembled laughter. 8 billion? On one world? They will make excellent laborers once we break their spirit. Vexithara nodded. Indeed. The standard terms will apply. They surrender 40% of their population for work assignments across the hegemony. All military assets become ours. Complete submission to hegemony law and governance. And if they refuse? Asked Minister Veltara of the Ethereal Dominion. No species has ever refused twice, Vexthara said with confidence. The first refusal is always emotional. When they see our first armada arrive, they understand reality quickly enough. The vote was unanimous, as it always was. The hegemony had perfected the art of galactic conquest over 3,000 years. 847 worlds had fallen to their superior technology and overwhelming force. Earth would be no different. 2 days later, the quantum broadcast was transmitted. To Earth on all frequencies, the message was simple and direct, translated into the dominant human languages by the hegemony's advanced computers. Director Sarah Chen received the message in her office deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. She was a small woman by human standards, with graying hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. Around her, the United Earth Defense Council worked quietly at their stations, monitoring communications from across the galaxy. Chen read the ultimatum 3 times before speaking. They want 40% of our population as slave labor, she said to her deputy, Marcus Rodriguez. Standard hegemony terms, Rodriguez replied, pulling up files on their previous conquests. They did the same thing to the Altarians, the Vorthan, Republic, and every other civilization they have encountered. Chen stood and walked to the large window that showed the hidden valley where their facility was built. Above them, normal human life continued. People went to work, children played, and nobody knew that humanity had just received a death sentence from an alien empire. 14 days, she said quietly. They give us 14 days to decide. What are your orders, Director? Chen turned back to her desk and activated the quantum transmitter. The message she composed was short and simple. To the galactic hegemony, your terms are respectfully declined. Consider this your only warning to leave our system and never return. We will not ask again. Director Sarah Chen, United Earth. Defense Council. Rodriguez stared at her. Director, they have technology centuries ahead of ours. Their first armada alone has 200 capital ships. Each one could destroy every military base on Earth. I know exactly what they have, Marcus. Chen sent the message. And now they know what we have. Which is what? Our entire Space Force is 12 ships, most of them converted cargo vessels. Chen smiled, but it was not a happy expression. They think they know what we have. That is their first mistake. On Hegemon Prime, Vexithara read the human response and felt something she had not experienced in centuries. Genuine surprise. Around the council table, The other species leaders began making sounds of disbelief and amusement. The primitive species rejects our generous offer? Admiral Zefkar asked, his tentacles writhing with excitement. How refreshing. It has been too long since we had a proper fight. This is not unusual, Vexthara said, though privately she wondered at the confidence in the human message. Many species refuse initially. The Corvan Empire held out for 6 months before surrendering. The Theta Collective tried to negotiate for better terms. What do we know about this Sarah Chen? Commander Thexmore asked, his digital consciousness analyzing available data. Nothing significant. She appears to be a minor bureaucrat in their defense organization. No military background, no special qualifications. She was probably chosen because their real leaders are too afraid to respond. War Master Kelndar stood up, his biomechanical body towering over the others. I request permission to lead the first Armada to Earth. My ships can reach their system in 10 days. Granted, Vexthara said immediately. Take the standard force. 200 capital ships, 50,000 fighters, 2 million soldiers. Make the conquest swift but memorable. Other primitive species need to see what happens when the hegemony is defied. Kelndar bowed. It will be my pleasure. The humans will surrender before we finish destroying their first city. 10 days later, the first Armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. The ships were beautiful and terrifying. Organic vessels that looked like they had been grown rather than built. Each one was 2 kilometers long, with hull plates that shifted and moved like living skin. Weapons ports opened like mouths, revealing plasma cannons that could melt mountains. War Master Kelndar stood on his command deck, studying the primitive system before him. His bioship's sensors immediately detected the human settlements, the tiny outpost on their moon, the research stations on Mars, the orbital platforms around their home world. Scan for their defense fleet, he ordered, detecting 12 vessels in orbit around the third planet. His tactical officer reported. They appear to be converted civilian ships with minimal weapon systems. Pathetic. Kelndar opened communications to the human ships. This is War Master Kelndar of the Galactic Hegemony First Armada. You have 30 minutes to surrender all military assets and prepare for occupation. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. The response came from the same woman who had sent the earlier message. Sarah Chen appeared on his display, sitting calmly in what looked like a basic command center. War Master Kelndar, I repeat our previous message. Leave our system immediately. This is your final warning. Kelndar felt his biomechanical implants surge with excitement. Human, you face 200 ships that can destroy worlds. Your entire species exists at our mercy. Surrender now, or face extinction. I understand your position, Chen replied. You have made a terrible mistake coming. Here, please reconsider. The communication ended. Kelndar stared at the blank display, genuinely confused. He had conquered dozens of worlds, faced species with technology far more advanced than these humans possessed. Not one had maintained such calm confidence in the face of certain defeat. Begin the approach to Earth, he ordered. Destroy any satellite or space station that shows hostile intent. Prepare landing forces for the major population centers. Sir, his sensor operator called out, I am detecting some kind of artificial structures around the fourth planet. They appear to be defense satellites. Kelndar studied the readings. The objects were small, no bigger than fighters, but there were thousands of them positioned throughout the system. Primitive orbital defenses, nothing our shields cannot handle. The first Armada moved deeper into the system, passing the gas giant Jupiter without incident. The strange satellites made no aggressive moves, simply tracked their progress, with what appeared to be basic sensor arrays. Approaching Earth's moon, Kelndar reported to Hegemon Prime. Humans have some kind of defense satellites, nothing we cannot handle. Beginning final approach to, the bioship's alarm screamed. Every sensor on the command deck lit up with warnings. Something impossible was happening around them. Sir, the tactical officer shouted. Energy readings are off the scale. Something is, the communication to Hegemon Prime cut off. The first Armada, 200 ships and 50,000 crew members, simply vanished from all sensors. In the vast emptiness of space, only silence remained. On Earth, Director Sarah Chen closed the communication channel and turned to her deputy. "Send word to the other councils," she said quietly. "The hegemony has made their choice." Begin phase 2 preparations. "How many more do you think will come?" Rodriguez asked. Chen looked up at the ceiling as if she could see through miles of rock to the stars above. "As many as it takes. They always do." High Chancellor Vexthara stared at the empty display where the first Armada should have been reporting their victory. 3 days had passed since War Master Kelndar's last transmission, and the silence was becoming impossible to ignore. "Still, no word?" she asked her communications officer. "Nothing, Chancellor. No distress signals, no battle reports, no emergency beacons. It is as if they simply stopped existing." Around the council chamber, the 12 species leaders shifted uncomfortably. This had never happened before. The hegemony's armadas were the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. They carried weapons that could crack planets and shields that could deflect star-level energy blasts. Admiral Zefkar of the Void Hunters spoke first. Perhaps they encountered some kind of natural phenomenon. A solar flare, a gravity well we did not detect. "Our scouts surveyed that system thoroughly," Vexithara replied. "Nothing dangerous was found. One small star, 8 planets, typical asteroid fields. The most advanced life form was these humans. Commander Thexmore processed thousands of scenarios through his cybernetic brain. We must consider the possibility that our intelligence was wrong. Perhaps the humans are not as primitive as they appeared." "Impossible," Minister Veltara of the Ethereal Dominion insisted. "Our sensors detected their technology level with perfect accuracy. Chemical rockets, fusion reactors, metal projectile weapons. They barely qualify as a spacefaring civilization." "Then explain what happened to 200 of our most advanced warships," Thexmore replied coldly. Vexthara raised her crystalline hand for silence. "We will send the second Armada. War Master Zentar will lead it with full sensor arrays and long-range communications. If something destroyed the first Armada, we will learn what it was." War Master Zentar of the Crystalline Confederation accepted the assignment with enthusiasm. His ships were living crystal formations that could reshape themselves for any battle situation. Their weapons fired focused light beams that could cut through any known material. "I will not make the same mistakes as Kellandar," Zentar announced. "My Armada will approach the human system with full defensive measures active. If these primitives have some kind of trap, we will be ready for it." The second Armada reached Earth's solar system 8 days later. Zentar kept his ships at maximum alert, sensors scanning for any sign of the missing first Armada. They found nothing. No wreckage, no energy signatures, no trace that 200 ships had ever been there. "Begin long-range scan of the inner system," Zentar ordered. "I want to know about every piece of space dust between here and that planet." His tactical officer, a being of living crystal like himself, resonated with concern. "Sir, I am detecting the same satellite network that Kelndar reported. They appear to be inactive. Maintain maximum distance, launch probe ships to investigate." 3 small crystalline scouts moved ahead of the main fleet. As they passed Jupiter, Zentar maintained constant communication with Hegemon Prime. "No sign of hostile activity. The human defense satellites are not responding to our presence." The probe ships reached Earth's moon and began detailed scans. "The human settlements show normal activity," the lead scout reported. "No apparent military buildup, no new defensive positions." "This makes no sense," Zentar muttered. "Where is their fleet? How did they destroy Kelndar's ships?" He ordered the main Armada to advance to Mars orbit. The crystalline ships moved in perfect formation, their living hulls constantly shifting and adapting. Zentar felt confident. His vessels were fundamentally different from the bioships of the first Armada. Whatever had happened to them could not happen to crystal beings. "Sir," his communications officer pulsed with alarm. "I am detecting massive energy buildup throughout the system. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. Source: unknown. The energy appears to be coming from everywhere at once. Zentar opened a channel to Hegemon Prime, detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. These are not the same humans from our intelligence reports. Something is very wrong. The crystal ships began to scream, not audibly. Crystalline beings communicated through harmonic vibrations that passed through the hulls of their vessels. Every ship in the Second Armada was suddenly vibrating with terror and confusion. The last transmission received on Hegemon Prime was a harmonic wail that translated roughly to, "They are everywhere. How are they everywhere? The humans are." Silence. Vex Thara felt something she had not experienced in her 3,000-year lifetime. Genuine fear. 2 armadas, 400 capital ships, 100,000 crew members. Gone without a trace. "Send the 3rd Armada," she ordered, "and the 4th, and the 5th, all at once." The next 3 armadas represented the military might of 6 different species. The 3rd Armada consisted of Void Hunter stealth ships that could phase in and out of normal space. The 4th was made up of Machina collective vessels, pure artificial intelligence with reaction times measured in nanoseconds. The 5th Armada belonged to the Ethereal Dominion, whose ships existed partially in other dimensions and could not be destroyed by conventional weapons. War Master Krev Allen of the Void Hunters led the combined force of 600 ships. His strategy was simple: hit the human system from multiple vectors simultaneously, using 3 completely different technologies. Whatever was destroying the armadas could not possibly counter all 3 approaches at once. The attack began at the edge of the solar system. Krevalin's stealth ships phased into real space near Pluto, while the Machina vessels approached from the opposite side at light speed. The ethereal ships prepared to shift into parallel dimensions and attack from angles that should not have existed. "All armadas report ready," Krevalin announced to Hegemon Prime, beginning coordinated assault on the human system. "Understood," Vexathara replied. "The entire hegemony is watching. Do not fail us." The 3 armadas moved inward with perfect coordination. Krevalin felt confident. This was the largest single military force ever assembled by the hegemony. Even if the humans had some kind of super weapon, they could not possibly destroy 600 ships attacking from impossible angles. His confidence lasted exactly 7 minutes. "Sir," his tactical officer screamed, "the Machina fleet just vanished. All 200 ships gone in an instant. Impossible. They were traveling faster than light spread across 1,000,000 kilometers of space. The ethereal ships are reporting the same thing. They shifted into the 7th dimension to avoid detection, and something followed them there." Krevalin felt his blood turn cold. Nothing could follow ships into parallel dimensions. That was basic physics. Only ethereal beings could exist in more than 3 dimensions at once. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Emergency jump to hyperspace." But it was too late. His stealth ships, invisible to every known sensor system, began disappearing one by one. Not destroyed, simply gone, as if they had never existed. The final transmission from the combined armadas was Krevalin's voice, filled with a terror that carried across interstellar space. "They can see us. Even in stealth mode. Even in other dimensions, they can see us. How is this possible? What are these humans? What are..." Vexathara stared at the silent communications array. 600 ships, the pride of 3 different empires, vanished without firing a single shot. "Send the 6th Armada," she whispered. "Chancellor," Commander Thexmore said carefully, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. We have lost over 1,000 ships without learning anything about how they are being destroyed." "Are you suggesting we surrender to a species that builds rockets with chemical fuel?" Vexathara snarled. "I am suggesting that our intelligence about this species may be incomplete." The 6th Armada was led by the hegemony's most experienced commander, Fleet Admiral Mordeth of the Shadow Imperium. His ships could manipulate gravity itself, creating black holes as weapons and using space-time distortion for defense. "I will not underestimate these humans," Mordeth announced. "Whatever they are using to destroy our fleets, it has limitations. Nothing is truly invincible." His Armada approached the solar system with extreme caution, using gravity sensors to map every object larger than a marble. They detected the usual planets and asteroids, the small human settlements, and the network of defense satellites that seemed too simple to be dangerous. Deploy gravity mines throughout the system, Mordeth ordered. If something attacks us, we will trap it in artificial gravity wells. The shadow ships spread out across billions of cubic kilometers, each one protected by distorted spacetime that should have made them untouchable. Mordeth felt confident. Gravity was the fundamental force of the universe. Nothing could overcome it. His confidence lasted until his flagship's sensors detected something impossible. "Sir," his science officer reported, "I am reading massive gravitational distortions throughout the system. Something is manipulating spacetime on a scale I have never seen." "Source?" "The distortions appear to be centered on the third planet, but they extend to every corner of the system. It is as if the entire solar system has been converted into some kind of machine." Mordeth opened communications to Hegemon Prime. "The humans have technology far beyond our initial estimates. They appear to have weaponized gravity itself across their entire star system." Vexithara's voice crackled over the communication link. Director Sarah Chen walked through the hidden corridors beneath the Colorado mountains, her footsteps echoing in the vast underground facility. The walls were lined with displays showing information that would have driven most alien species to madness, equations that described reality itself, star charts of dimensions that existed alongside their own, and readouts from technologies that bent the laws of physics. "Report," she said as she entered the main command center. Marcus Rodriguez looked up from his station, his face showing the strain of coordinating a war that spanned multiple realities. "7th Armada just went dark. Same pattern as the others. Approach the system, realize something is wrong, then silence. How many ships total? 1,400 so far. 7 complete Armadas. 2 million crew members from 12 different species." Chen nodded and walked to the central display. With a gesture, she activated a 3-dimensional map that showed not just Earth's solar system, but the layers of reality that existed around it. Most humans could only see 3 dimensions, but the people in this facility had learned to perceive far more. "Show me the holding areas," she said. The display shifted to reveal something impossible. Floating in carefully maintained pocket dimensions, around Earth were the missing Armadas. All 1,400 ships perfectly intact, their crews alive but suspended in quantum stasis. Each vessel was held in its own bubble of altered spacetime, preserved like insects in amber. "Any casualties?" Chen asked. "None," Rodriguez replied. "Full non-lethal capture protocols just like always." "Good. The review board will want to examine them all before making final decisions." A new voice spoke from behind them. "The review board has already made some preliminary decisions." Chen turned to see a woman who looked exactly like her, but wearing different clothes and carrying herself with subtle differences in posture and expression. This was Sarah Chen of the Diplomatic Council from Earth Delta 7, one of the parallel dimensions where human civilization had developed along different lines. "Commander Chen," Director Chen said formally. "What news from the other Earths?" "The hegemony is panicking," the other Sarah replied. "Our monitoring stations in their space report complete chaos in their command structure. They are preparing the 8th Armada with reality anchors to prevent dimensional interference." "Reality anchors?" Rodriguez asked. Commander Chen smiled grimly. "They think we are using some kind of advanced technology to hide our ships in parallel dimensions. They have no idea that we are not hiding from them. We are simply choosing which timeline they get to interact with." Director Chen walked to another console and activated a communication system that existed across multiple realities simultaneously. "This is Control Prime to all Earth variants. Status report." Dozens of voices responded, each one a version of human civilization that had developed differently. "War Earth reporting all combat systems ready. Science Earth confirms dimensional. Mathematics are stable. Hive Earth collective consciousness operating at full efficiency. Tech Earth reports all quantum manipulation devices online. Quantum Earth here," came another voice. We have located the hegemony's homeworlds in 17 different timelines. All variants show similar military capabilities in civilian populations. Any recommendation from the Ethics Council? Director Chen asked. They suggest we continue current protocols, capture rather than destroy, education rather than punishment. Most of these species appear to be victims of their own success. They became conquerors because it was easy, not because they were fundamentally evil. Rodriguez looked confused. Director, I know I have security clearance for most of our operations, but I still do not understand how this works. How are we coordinating with other versions of Earth? Director Chen considered how much to explain. Marcus, what do you know about quantum mechanics? The basics. Multiple possible states exist until observed, probability waves, that sort of thing. Now imagine that principle applied to entire realities. Every decision, every event, every possible outcome creates a new timeline. Most species can only perceive and interact with one timeline, their own. Humans developed differently. She gestured to the display showing the captured armadas. When the first armada arrived, they encountered the Earth where humanity developed dimensional technology. When the second armada came, they met the timeline where we mastered gravity manipulation. Each armada faced whichever version of humanity was best equipped to deal with their specific capabilities. But how do we coordinate across different realities? Commander Chen answered this time. About 50,000 years ago, humanity in various timelines began to develop what we call quantum consciousness. We started to become aware of our parallel selves and eventually learned to communicate across dimensions. 50,000 years? Rodriguez stared, but human civilization is only about 10,000 years old. In this timeline, Director Chen said gently, in others, we developed faster or slower in different directions with different priorities. Some human civilizations are millions of years old. Others just discovered fire last week. We coordinate across all of them. She activated another display showing a vast network of interconnected realities. There are approximately 847,000 different versions of Earth, each with its own human civilization. When the hegemony sent their ultimatum, they were not just threatening one planet. They were threatening nearly 1 million worlds full of human beings. Rodriguez sat down heavily, and they never knew. How could they? Most species develop along a single timeline, with single-dimensional consciousness. They cannot even imagine what we have become. The communication system activated again. Control Prime. This is Deep Space Earth. We have detected the 8th Armada forming up in the hegemony staging area. New ships, different technology. They appear to have reality anchors designed to lock space-time into a single configuration. Director Chen smiled. Let me guess. They think that will prevent us from using dimensional manipulation. Correct. They do not realize that we are not manipulating dimensions. We exist in all of them simultaneously. Which Earth variant should handle the 8th Armada? Tech Earth requests permission to demonstrate our newest development. We have learned to exist in negative dimensions. Rodriguez looked even more confused. Negative dimensions? Commander Chen explained. Imagine dimensions as numbers. Most species exist in dimensions 1, 2, and 3. We learn to access 4, 5, 6, and beyond. Tech Earth has figured out how to exist in dimension -1, -2, and so on. It is a completely separate set of realities that overlap with normal space. The reality anchors will not work because they can only lock down positive dimensional space. Director Chen added. The 8th Armada will never see what hits them. 2 days later, the 8th Armada appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. War Marshal Vexoth of the Quantum Syndicate led 300 ships equipped with the most advanced technology the hegemony had ever developed. Each vessel carried reality anchors that could lock spacetime into a stable configuration, preventing any form of dimensional manipulation within 1 million kilometers. Activate reality anchors, Vexoth ordered. I want this entire system locked down to baseline dimensions. If the humans are using some kind of dimensional technology, they will not be able to use it now. The anchors activated with a pulse of energy that rippled across the solar system. Sophisticated sensors confirmed that spacetime was now locked into its most basic configuration. 3 dimensions of space, 1 of time, no possibility of parallel realities or dimensional shifting. Perfect, Vexoth said with satisfaction. Now let us see how these humans fight without their tricks. The Eighth Armada began its approach to Earth, confident that they had finally solved the mystery. Whatever technology the humans were using, it required dimensional manipulation, and that was no longer possible. They were halfway to Jupiter when the ships began to disappear. "Sir," the tactical officer screamed, "3 ships just vanished from Sector 7. Impossible. The reality. Anchors are functioning perfectly. Another 5 ships gone from Sector 12. Our sensors show nothing. No energy signatures, no weapons fire." Vexoth stared at his displays in growing horror. His ships were disappearing one by one, pulled into some kind of space that his reality anchors could not detect or prevent. "Emergency. Transmission to Hegemon Prime," he ordered. "The reality anchors are useless. The humans are operating in some form of space that exists outside normal dimensions. How is this possible? What are these?" The flagship vanished, taking War Marshal Vexoth and his entire crew into the negative dimensional space where Tech Earth waited with patient smiles. On Hegemon Prime, High Chancellor Vexathara received the news in stunned silence. 8 armadas, 1,700 ships, 2.5 million crew members, all gone without causing even minor damage to the human system. "Chancellor," Commander Thexmore said carefully, "I believe we must accept that our intelligence about humanity was completely wrong. They are not a primitive species." "Then what are they?" Vexthara whispered. Before Thexmore could answer, every communication system in the Hegemony Council chamber activated simultaneously. A familiar voice spoke. From the speakers, Director Sarah Chen of Earth. High Chancellor Vexthara stood before the emergency session of the Hegemony Council, her crystalline skin darker than usual, a sign of deep stress among her species. Around the curved table, representatives from 12 different civilizations waited in tense silence. "The situation is beyond anything we have faced in 3 millennia, she began. 8 armadas, 1,700 ships, over 2 million crew members, all captured without firing a single effective shot. War Master Thexmore of the Machina Collective processed the data through his cybernetic implants. Our tactical analysis suggests the humans possess technology that operates outside known physical laws. They appear to exist in multiple dimensions, simultaneously." "Impossible," Admiral Zefkar of the Void Hunters insisted. "No species can develop such capabilities without millions of years of advanced civilization. Our scouts confirmed these humans have only been using space travel for decades. Our scouts were wrong," Vexathara replied coldly. "The question now is what we do about it." Minister Veltara of the Ethereal Dominion, whose own people could shift between dimensions, spoke with unusual uncertainty. "My people tried to follow the captured ships into parallel space. We found nothing. It is as if they were pulled into dimensions that do not exist." "All dimensions exist," came a new voice from the chamber's communication system. "You simply lack the ability to perceive most of them." Every being in the council chamber froze. The voice belonged to Director Sarah Chen, but she was not supposed to be able to access their secure communications. "How did you penetrate our security?" Thexmore demanded. "We did not penetrate anything. This conversation is taking place across multiple timelines simultaneously. In some of them, we are invited guests. In others, we are monitoring your discussions to better understand your intentions." The holographic display activated without anyone touching the controls. Sarah Chen appeared, but not as they had seen her before. This version stood in what looked like a vast library, surrounded by floating displays showing star charts, mathematical equations, and images of species from across the galaxy. "Chancellor Vexathara," Chen said formally, "I represent the transdimensional human collective. We are prepared to make you an offer." "We do not negotiate with primitives," Vexathara replied. Though her voice lacked its usual authority, Chen smiled sadly. "Chancellor, you still do not understand what you are dealing with. Would you like a demonstration?" Before anyone could respond, the council chamber changed. Not physically, The walls, furniture, and beings remained the same. But suddenly they could see more. Through the walls they perceived the streets of their capital city. Through those streets they saw the planet's core. Beyond the planet, they observed their star system as if looking down from impossible heights. This is how humans see reality, Chen explained. Not just 3 dimensions, but all of them. Your council chamber exists in baseline space, but we can observe it from 17 different dimensional angles simultaneously. The enhanced perception faded, leaving the council members disoriented and frightened. "What do you want?" Vexithara whispered. "To prevent unnecessary suffering," Chen replied. "Your empire has conquered 847 worlds through superior military technology. But technology always advances. Eventually someone develops something better." Admiral Zefkar found his courage. "Are you threatening us?" "No, Admiral. I am informing you that your expansion has ended. The question is whether it ends through negotiation or through more direct intervention." "What kind of intervention?" Thexmore asked. Chen gestured, and the holographic display showed images from across the galaxy, hegemony worlds, space stations, fleets. "We have been observing your empire for quite some time, across multiple timelines. We know the location of every world, every ship, every outpost you control." "Impossible. Our territory spans thousands of light years. In baseline space, yes. In quantum space, distance becomes meaningless." Chen waved her hand, and the display zoomed in on Hegemon Prime itself. "Would you like to see what happened to your 9th Armada?" "The 9th Armada has not been deployed," Vexithara said carefully. "In this timeline, no. In 17 others, you decided to send one final force to Earth. Let me show you how that turned out." The display split into multiple screens, each showing a different version of events. In some timelines, a massive hegemony fleet approached Earth with overwhelming force. In others, they tried stealth approaches, diplomatic missions, or even attempts to destroy Earth's sun from a distance. Every attempt failed. In timeline after timeline, hegemony forces were captured, redirected, or simply convinced to return home without completing their missions. "This is sorcery," Minister Veltara breathed. "This is the result of 50,000 years of human development across nearly 1,000,000 parallel realities," Chen corrected. "Most species develop along a single timeline. Humans developed conscious awareness of parallel selves and learned to coordinate across dimensional barriers." She gestured again, and the display showed something that made several council members gasp in fear. Floating in space around Earth were structures that should not have been able to exist, cities that extended into folded dimensions, weapons, platforms that existed in negative space, and ships that appeared to be the size of small moons. "The Earth you observed was a monitoring post," Chen explained. "What we call baseline Earth, maintained at early technological levels to observe species like yourselves. The real human civilization exists across dimensional space." Thexmore's cybernetic brain worked frantically to process this information. "How many humans are there?" "Approximately 8 trillion, spread across 847,000 different versions of Earth. Each world developed differently, some focused on technology, others on dimensional physics, still others on social sciences or biological enhancement. The number was staggering. 8 trillion humans with technology that operated outside known physics, coordinated across nearly 1,000,000 different realities." "What do you want from us?" Vexthara asked again. "The same thing we wanted when you sent your first ultimatum. For you to leave peacefully and never return. But now we also want you to release every species you have conquered and disband your empire." "Unacceptable," Admiral Zefkar snarled. "The hegemony will not surrender to any species, no matter their technology." "Then let me show you the alternative," Chen said quietly. The display changed to show hegemony space from an impossible perspective. Every world, every space station, every ship was visible simultaneously. But more than that, they could see the timeline branches showing what would happen if the hegemony refused to surrender. In some timelines, hegemony worlds simply became empty, their populations relocated to better planets in different dimensions. In others, the species that made up the hegemony found themselves unable to maintain their technology, as if they had forgotten how their own machines worked. In the darkest timelines, entire hegemony species seemed to fade from existence, as if history had been rewritten to exclude them. We prefer not to use such methods, Chen said. But we have learned that some species only understand power. If necessary, we can make your empire irrelevant by ensuring it never existed in the first place. Time travel, Thexmore whispered. You can alter the past. Time is just another dimension, Chen replied. Like space, it can be navigated if you understand how. We would prefer to work with you toward a peaceful solution. Vexithara felt the weight of 847 conquered worlds on her shoulders. The hegemony had built its empire through strength and fear. Now they faced a species that made their strength look like a child's toy, and their fear seemed justified. What exactly are you proposing? She asked. Release every conquered species. Allow them to govern themselves. Disband the hegemony as a conquering force. In return, we will help you establish a new form of galactic organization, one based on cooperation rather than domination. And if we refuse? Chen's expression remained kind, but her words carried the weight of 1,000,000 Earths behind them. Then we will implement the solution that causes the least suffering for the greatest number of people. That solution does not include the continued existence of your empire. The communication ended, leaving the Hegemony Council in stunned silence. Outside their chamber, the stars continued to shine, but now each point of light seemed to hide impossible complexities. Dimensional layers, parallel realities, and the patient gaze of 8 trillion humans watching their decision. Assemble. The 9th Armada, Vexithara ordered finally. But not for attack. We are going to Earth to negotiate. Chancellor, Thexmore asked, we are going to find out what these humans really want. And we are going to pray to whatever gods still listen, that we can give it to them. The 9th Armada approached Earth's solar system unlike any previous hegemony fleet. War Marshal Thexmore led 500 ships, but these were not configured for conquest. The vessels carried diplomatic flags, scientific equipment, and communication, arrays designed for negotiation rather than war. All ships maintain peaceful formation, Thexmore broadcast to his fleet. Remember, we are here to understand, not to conquer. High Chancellor Vexithara stood beside him on the flagship's command deck, her crystalline skin shifting through colors that indicated deep anxiety. Do you think they will actually meet with us? After what we have seen, Chancellor, I believe they will do whatever serves their purposes best. We can only hope those purposes include keeping us alive. As the fleet passed Jupiter, their sensors detected the now familiar network of satellites throughout the system. But this time, instead of being ignored, the hegemony ships received a communication. War Marshal Thexmore, this is Commander Sarah Chen of Earth Diplomatic Corps. Please proceed to the coordinates we are transmitting. You will be met by an escort vessel. The coordinates led them to a point in space near Earth's moon. As they arrived, a single human ship appeared, impossibly small compared to their massive fleet, no bigger than a hegemony shuttle. This is Commander Chen, War Marshal Thexmore and High Chancellor Vexithara. You are invited aboard for discussions. The rest of your fleet will remain here under our protection. Protection from what? Thexmore asked. From making the same mistakes your predecessors made. My ship is equipped with dimensional transport. Please prepare for transfer. Before either leader could ask what dimensional transport meant, they found themselves standing in a vast chamber that could not possibly have fit inside the small vessel they had seen. The space was filled with soft light that seemed to come from everywhere at once, and through enormous windows they could see not just their own fleet, but structures and vessels that extended beyond normal perception. Commander Sarah Chen stood, waiting for them, but she was not alone. Around her were other humans, dozens of them, all wearing different clothing and carrying themselves with subtle variations that suggested different backgrounds and cultures. Welcome aboard the Consensus, Chen said formally. I am Commander Chen of Diplomatic Earth. Allow me to introduce some of my colleagues. She gestured to a woman who looked nearly identical to her but moved with the precision of a trained soldier. This is Colonel Chen of Military Earth. She commands our defense forces across 17,000 timelines. Another woman stepped forward, this one wearing robes that seemed to shift color as she moved. Dr. Chen of Science Earth. She leads our research into dimensional physics and temporal mechanics. The introductions continued. Professor Chen of Academic Earth, Director Chen of Industrial Earth, Captain Chen of Exploration Earth. Each was clearly the same person, but developed along different paths in parallel realities. You are all the same individual? Vexthara asked in amazement. We are all Sarah Chen, the original replied. But we developed in different timelines, with different experiences and specializations. This allows us to approach problems from multiple perspectives, simultaneously. Thexmore's cybernetic implants process this information at maximum capacity. How many versions of you exist? Approximately 847,000 across all inhabited versions of Earth. Each timeline produced its own Sarah Chen, and we have learned to coordinate our actions across dimensional space. Doctor, Chen stepped forward. But we are not the only ones. Every human who has ever lived exists in multiple timelines. Soldiers, scientists, artists, philosophers, engineers, millions of parallel versions working together. This explains your military capabilities, Thexmore said. You can coordinate the knowledge and experience of entire civilizations across multiple realities. Correct. When your first Armada attacked, it faced not just the humans of one Earth, but the combined military expertise of nearly 1 million different human civilizations. Colonel Chen activated a holographic display showing the captured hegemony fleets. Your crews are being educated about humanity's true nature. Many of them have already begun to understand that their conquest-based civilization is not the only way to organize galactic society. What have you done to them? Vexithara demanded. We have shown them what we showed you, that reality is far larger and more complex than they imagined. Some have asked to remain with us. Others wish to return home. A few have requested to help with what comes next. Which is what? Thexmore asked. Commander Chen gestured and the chamber around them changed. Suddenly they could see across vast distances of space, observing hegemony worlds, conquered species, and the vast network of oppression that had been built over 3 millennia. The dissolution of your empire and the liberation of every species. You have conquered, she said simply. Impossible, Vexthara protested. The hegemony controls thousands of worlds, billions of beings. The economic and social disruption would cause chaos across the galaxy. Professor Chen of Academic Earth smiled gently. Chancellor, you assume we would simply abandon these worlds to fend for themselves. That would indeed cause suffering, which is why we will not do it. The display zoomed in on conquered worlds throughout hegemony space. On each planet, they could see something impossible. Human settlements that had not been there days before, advanced technology being shared with formerly enslaved populations, and peaceful transitions of power happening simultaneously across hundreds of worlds. We have been preparing for this moment for quite some time, Director Chen explained. Humans from thousands of different timelines have been quietly positioning themselves throughout your empire, ready to provide aid and guidance during the transition. You have invaded our territory? Thexmore asked. We have offered help to those who needed it, Captain Chen replied. Most of your conquered species have been waiting for someone to free them. We simply made ourselves available. The scale of the operation was staggering. Across thousands of light years on hundreds of worlds, humanity had somehow positioned itself to completely restructure galactic civilization in a matter of days. What happens to the hegemony species? Vexithara asked quietly. That depends on your choices going forward, Commander Chen replied. Species that embrace cooperation and peaceful development will find us to be valuable allies. Those that attempt to rebuild conquest-based empires will find us to be immovable obstacles. She waved her hand, and the display showed possible futures, branching out like tree limbs. In some timelines, former hegemony species worked alongside humans to build a better galactic community. In others, they isolated themselves on their home worlds, rejected by the galaxy they had tried to dominate. In the darkest branches, some species simply ceased to exist. "We prefer the cooperative timelines," Dr. Chen said. "They produce better outcomes for everyone involved." "You would destroy entire species?" Vexithera whispered. "We would allow the natural consequences of their choices to play out," Colonel Chen corrected. "A species that devotes all its energy to conquest and oppression often finds itself unable to adapt when conquest is no longer possible." Commander Chen stepped closer to the two hegemony leaders. "But that is not what we want for your people. You developed impressive technology and organizational skills. Applied to peaceful purposes, those abilities could benefit the entire galaxy." She activated another display showing a vision of possible cooperation. Hegemony engineering expertise helping to build better worlds, their organizational skills coordinating relief efforts, their technology adapted for exploration rather than conquest. "This is what we offer," she said. "A chance to be remembered as the species that helped build a better galaxy, rather than the one that tried to enslave it." Thexmore processed the offer through every analytical system in his cybernetic brain. "What guarantees do we have that humanity will not simply replace the hegemony as galactic overlords?" "None," Commander Chen replied honestly. "Except for our demonstrated behavior. We have the power to conquer your empire, but instead we offer partnership. We have the ability to destroy species that oppose us, but instead we educate them about alternatives." She gestured to the windows showing the impossible structures around Earth. "We have been watching galactic civilization for thousands of years, across millions of timelines. We have seen every possible form of government, every type of empire, every variation of interstellar society. We know what works and what does not." "And what works?" Vexthera asked. "Cooperation based on mutual benefit and respect for individual choice. Species working together while maintaining their unique cultures and perspectives. Technology and knowledge shared freely, rather than hoarded by the powerful." Dr. Chen added, "We have seen galaxies where such cooperation flourishes. They are beautiful beyond description. Countless species working together, exploring the universe, creating art and science that would amaze you." "And if we refuse?" Thexmore asked. "Then you return to your empire, and we implement our plans. Without your cooperation," Commander Chen replied, "your conquered territories will be liberated regardless. The only question is whether the hegemony species will be part of building what comes next." She extended her hand in a human gesture of greeting. "What is your decision?"